Francis and his cousins had no doubt been shown this palatial dwelling by their tutor and had probably been received there. The most influential family in the League was the Guise family. Their patron was the Cardinal of Guise. Not long before, in 1572, the St. Bartholomew Day massacre had taken place. Supposedly instigated by Catherine de' Medici and the Guise family, Catholics had slaughtered numerous leading Calvinists. Passions ran high in those days. Those on both sides had no hesitation in cruelly and self-righteously killing each other. This painting, found in the Louvre, allegorically portrays the St. Bartholomew Day massacre. Francis was not unaffected by the Calvinist Catholic turmoil. Besides his studies in the humanities, he attended classes in theology with his tutor Desage. The most discussed topic of the day was predestination. Calvin had claimed we are all predestined before our birth to heaven or hell. Francis began to question whether he was predestined to hell. Above the entryway of Notre Dame Cathedral, in the heart of Paris, the Last Judgment was depicted. In this scene, the saved were led off one way and the damned the other. The damned are depicted with great detail. Could this depiction, before a cathedral he entered so often, have contributed to his anxiety? In the church of Saint-Étienne-du-Mont, a short distance from Claremont College, is a stained glass window that was completed in 1568. It depicts the gospel invitation to the banquet, with many of those invited offering excuses for not responding. I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I am on my way to try them out. Please accept my apologies. I have just gotten married, and so am unable to come. Could Francis have seen this window while visiting nearby churches? Could it have influenced him? Francis had learned from Génébrard, his scripture teacher, of the great personal love relationship between God and each of his creatures as depicted in the Canticle of Canticles of the Old Testament. Here is Francis' copy of Génébrard's commentary on the Canticle of Canticles. It is presently at the library of the Florimondon Academy in Annecy. We can see Francis' signature. In this book, the author interprets the love relationship between a shepherd and a shepherdess as a symbol of the passionate love between God and his creatures. How could this loving God assign any of his beloved to hell? There was conflict in his heart over the 2 views of God he had found in Paris. The passionate, loving God who had been painted by Génébrard, and the God of predestination, who decides, seemingly arbitrarily, who will be eternally separated from him. All this brought Francis literally and figuratively to his knees. Before the statue of the Black Madonna, in the church of Saint-Étienne-des-Grès, in the Latin Quarter, across the street from Claremont College, Francis prayed for the intercession of Mary. Finally, he came to the peaceful conclusion that even if he would be damned eternally, he would take advantage of living in a loving relationship with his God right here in the course of his earthly life. The church no longer exists, but this is a sketch of it. Francis said, "Whatever it is to be, Lord, at least let me love you in this life, if I am unable to love you in eternity." He then recited the Memorare and found himself cured of his doubts about his predestination to hell. The result of this crisis was a maturing of his love for God. Francis would love God for himself, not for any advantage God might give Francis. The statue before which he prayed is found today in the chapel of the Sisters of Notre Dame de Villeneuve in Neuilly, a suburb of Paris. It also contains the stained glass window seen above. After completion of his studies at Paris, Francis would spend a short time with his family at their property of La Ville on the Lake of Annecy. Its remains have recently been restored. After a short stay, he headed to the city of St. Anthony in Padua, in Italy. There he would study both civil and canon law in the shadow of the Basilica of St. Anthony. Here he would meet the Jesuit, Antoine Possevin, the orator, theologian, and church diplomat, who became his spiritual director and guided his desire to become a priest. Here Francis wrote his Regulations of Padua, a guide for combining his social interaction and his love of God. This is Francis' document of matriculation in the University of Padua. It can be found today in France at the Museum of the Château of Torrent, just a short distance from the site of the former Château of Sales. According to the late director of this museum, the Count Roussy de Sales, a direct descendant of the de Sales family, Francis had also used this matriculation document as a document of identity on his travels. Padua had been influenced by the Italian Renaissance, whose architectural style marked the home of the poet Dante, who died here. The University of Padua remains today as a center of European learning. The same building that Francis attended is still in use. A museum in this building reminds us of the fields of study. For example, Francis' discipline, law. Also in this museum is a tribute to the university's famous alumni, among whom is our Francis. Here he would hone his gifts and talents among the treasures of the Italian Renaissance, such as Donatello's equestrian statue, the Gattamelata, alongside the Basilica, until finally he was awarded a double doctorate, as was the case in his day, of both church and civil law. This is the document open to its first page. It is also on display at the Château of Torrent. In the Renaissance city of St. Anthony, Francis completed his formal studies. End of video 1. Produced by De Sales University. Directed and narrated by A. Robert McGilvray, Oblate of St. Francis de Sales.